May the 31st, 2026. Guys, we're almost into June, and summer heat has started to kick in here in the south. We're at 89, and we're looking at about 106 on the heat index right now. 82% humidity. So you've got all the factors in there. But again, June 1st coming up, everything's kicking in. Summer, tropical season, we'll mention that. But what we're looking at, and we have been looking at, is Mead dropping, because now, if you look at Mead and Powell, even though they've shut down a lot of Powell's outlet, or minimized it to around, I think, 6,000 cubic feet or something like that per second. But they now, even though they are putting these safety precautions into Powell, the Fed stepped in before Tier 2 stepped in, which is in the morning, because this thing is about to cross. It's 10:50:15. You see that right there? This is the 11 to 12 o'clock update. Then again, Mountain Standard Time. And again, the Fed stepped in just a little early. Powell's down to a limited withdrawal. That's not happening, guys, at Hoover. There's too many downstream demands where they can't just stop and shut it down. They do regulate it. And you think about the release times. At midnight, they were at 28,000 cubic feet per second. You see that? Now, that maintained pretty steadily, started dropping. It peaked right here at 4 o'clock in the morning at 29, went to 24, and I guess with the timing of the downfield current and the power getting to the generating stations, you know, it doesn't take that long, but it takes a minute. So what they're seeing here is maximum flow going out, for the maximum they can allow, going out, and kicking in time for the morning grids, you know, the air conditioners kicking on, things like that. And then after that is into the grid, you see two things here. It dropped to 10:50:19. We're at 10:50:15 now, and 24. Then when it hit 10:50:13, somebody said, whoa, we better watch this. And then right here at 8 o'clock, they dropped from 15,000 to 3,000. And so that is what's keeping this number from dropping already. And again, it's predetermined what they have to let go depending on downstream demand. Now, let's take a quick look at this chart. This was done when the actual level of the lake was at 1080. That's what you're seeing here, the blue line. We're down at the dotted line at 1050 right now. Intake 1 was exposed in 2022 during that bad drought, and they had to permanently seal it off because you can't pull air in there without destroying all the turbines and things like that, cavitation effect. So we're down here at this level now. This one's capped off. Intake 2 is 1,000 feet. 50 more feet and intake 2 will be down. And these are intakes to Vegas. These aren't the outlets at the dam. Let me, just so we understand, talking about two different things. But they both have similar effects, just in different ways. And again, 50 feet down to intake 2. Vegas shuts down half of their supply because 1 is already down. And then 860 above sea level, you've got this intake 3. So Vegas will be the last group to get some of this deep, cool water. Now, what we're going to be looking at, though, is an entirely different thing, because intake 1 is already closed. We're looking at the water output levels at the dam and the power outputs, and that's going to change tomorrow. But what the Tier 2 restrictions are going to do, they're going to force the Hoover Dam to drastically cut hydropower generation, resulting in significant downstream grid changes. And what those changes will be, guys, is right now the cheapest water is hydropower. It's like 30% cheaper than anything else you can get. And the other resources are also dwindling. But what will happen, you won't see blackouts starting down, say, in Phoenix right away or anything like that, because the generating system will start to see the power drop, and it can do it in seconds if everything's up and running well. Can see the power drop coming out of Hoover Dam, and they will automatically switch their networks, or AI will do it probably, but I'm sure humans are watching it because we're at a critical level. But they will switch that to local power. either running nuclear, coal, or something like that. But remember now, Salt River Project is definitely tied into the Mead grid. Some of the others are not. So Salt Lake Power is running from hydropower at the time, and they will be forced to do it. Now, why is that important? Because it's going to affect your electric bills. The first month, you may not see much difference coming up, which we're going into June. And they do that, I think, the way they set that power increase level up is on a 3-month basis. So it may be August before you see an increase under the current circumstances. That's why I'm doing kind of back-to-back videos, because we're seeing both government changes daily and we're seeing river levels and lake levels change daily. But they're going to have to switch because they're about to lose 40% of the hydropower from Mead. And that's an automatic step in, guys, to keep Mead from going dry. They have to, just like they shut down Powell a few weeks back to prevent it from going into disaster. This is the forced way that nature is recapturing her desert. Now, again, they're saying the shift to open market is regional utilities like Nevada Energy are being forced to replace the lost generation by buying costlier alternative electricity on the open power grid. Rising electricity costs because of the hydropower is one of the cheapest energy sources in the Southwest. The transition to more expensive grid energy is projected to drive up utility bills for downstream consumers. That's what I'm talking about. Now, what's going to hit first also is the Arizona farming areas. They're already in trouble. They've had to not plant a lot of their land because of the drought, and just, not plant it and cut back on their water because they're not getting it. But this is going to change both the water and the power, because they're going to have to use more pumping, which increases the electricity bill by quite a bit. The bigger the pump, the deeper the water that they're pumping while it lasts, that bill will go up. You guys, in, say, an average home, from the data I'm looking at, you may start to see from a $15 to a $45 a month increase under current conditions. This was without a faster drop due to no weather patterns changing, heat incoming. It's June now, we got to expect that. And again, the river's running low, and the weather patterns at 20 miles high are showing a very tightly locked grid over the Southwest. Now we're going to see, looking at that data, putting it all together, we're going to see record heat, not only here, but across the entire U.S. this year. What they're talking about is it's going to follow the trend that we've noticed and watched each year, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years, they blend together now. But where the hurricanes turned north before getting over to the mainland, didn't make it quite into the Gulf of America. But we saw, again, last year it was phenomenal. We saw one go back and hit Africa. But we saw that change each year. It has to do with that 150-mile north drip of the International Convergence Zone. But what's going to happen now, El Nino's kicking in big, guys, big. It's going to set records. It's going to trap the heat that's there. It's going to push it all the way to the East Coast and push the hurricanes, keep them offshore, the vast majority of them. So it's not going to be a big season for Atlantic or Gulf or Caribbean cooling, just like we didn't have one last year, and you saw the effects during the winter. Much stronger storms, maybe not as many, but much wetter, much stronger. Also, when you're locking in these Tier 2 restrictions, guys, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation officially sets the next calendar year shortage tiers every August. Physically dipping below 1050 guarantees that severe Tier 2 water delivery cuts are no longer just a projection. Arizona, Nevada, and Mexico will face mandatory heavy reductions in their annual water allocations. Just think about that. When we talk about Mexico, that area is a very large agricultural area. And it's, again, what's going to happen, on the cutbacks to the farms. And guys, this is not going to go on long, but these are just immediate reactions. The farmers will be along the Arizona section. They will be cutting back from certain crops that take a lot of water, and that certain crops that cattle need and things. So you'll see prices go up and supply go down of a lot of different things, because this affects everything. Water and power changes the game. Like I said yesterday, there is no civilization as we know it without power. Now, they came out again with a 24-month projection back earlier, and they've changed it. They changed it for Powell, and now they're going to change it to Tier 2. But at the rate this thing is dropping, the next danger zone is a 10,035. Not because it will lose, Vegas will lose the ability to get water at 1,000 feet, but because the decline is accelerating, because upstream water releases again are being restricted. That's from Powell. Experts are warning that if the lake continues to drop to 1035 feet later this summer, it's no longer next June 27th. Okay, this is coming from the experts. They're warning if the lake continues to drop again, 1035 later this summer, Hoover Dam will hit a hydropower cliff. At that level, 12 of the dam's 17 turbines cannot operate, instantly slashing the regional power grid's cheap electricity by 70%. Think about that, guys. So if the locals can keep up with it, as far as the local alternative power companies, coal, nuclear, whatever it is, in natural gas, by the way, which is skyrocketed. I think the war overseas has really helped that. But liquid natural gas, coal, and nuclear will have to step in and handle it. One problem is by the time it gets to every house, have gone back into the same grid that they started building, except, of course, new subdivisions. But the downstream grid is about, they started that, the last time they really updated it was in the 70s. Now, certain areas have been updated. We were this summer with new pole transformers. Anyway, because they're switching over to that power, would the grid be able to handle it? Because they regulate the power at Mead somewhat. When they don't need the downstream current, they cut that supply down. It allows everything to cool down, including the grid, right? But now when the alternative grids come into play, that's going to put that power that we talked about on an old grid, and they're talking about 3 years if you can get enough transformers. So you're looking into a dark hole right there, empty, because things will not wait 3 years in the desert heat. Now, I haven't looked up, I should have, but I haven't looked up where the coal plants are. I think you do have some in the desert area, the Phoenix area. I'm not sure about Vegas. But what you would notice, if this kicks in tomorrow, like they're saying, 40% reduction, then you would normally, in most cases, probably see more dark smoke from the coal plants, things like that. That could be some of the immediate effects. And when you're trapped in a bowl, I've been in Phoenix in the summertime, and you can look for, if you go up on one of the mountains, it's a yellow haze over it. It's a bowl, and it's hot, and this is not going to help that, just off to the side. But you may notice that. And the reports are showing the sharpest drop in electricity generation is scheduled to occur this autumn. Again, they're looking at the shutdown tomorrow of Mead and a rapid drop to 1035. Federal water managers predict that the full brunt of the turbine shutdowns, forcing the dam down to its few low-head units, will hit fall 2026. Even though 10,049 feet knocks out the first water intake, the traditional turbines can still spin until the lake drops below 1035. Hoover Dam will continue producing as much peak power as possible through the high demand summer months. Guys, when it gets to a certain level, you start really destroying the turbines, and that's why they shut down power, to preserve its infrastructure. So they're going to be trying to balance all of that out when we see this happen. And guys, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamations, again, are constantly updating. They're having to. Reality is slapping them in the face. It says, due to a severe spring snow drought across the West, coupled with extreme early season heat, the Bureau significantly has downgraded the river system outlook. The actual updated timeline from the May 26 report, we're May 26, last day of it, shows that the crisis hitting much faster than earlier numbers suggested. The 1035-foot drop, guys, that's the chokehold, the major one. That's been accelerated. Like I said, under the more probable model, the USBR warns Lake Mead could plunge to 1035 by late summer or early fall 2026, months ahead of previous projections. They had not changed that when we started this series going into the Southwest. Now it has been. But already, they're saying a historical record will be broken this year. The reservoir is now expected to break its lowest historical level on record, 1040 by the end of 2026, possibly 1030, guys. So it's, when you get to 1,000 feet, the only thing left is that third straw for Vegas as far as water. And there's virtually no output power from Mead. Now, again, everything is coming together at one time. We're not seeing drought, we're seeing desert aridification. This new release, May 26, or May 2026, Bureau release shows that the hydrological models and the physical breaking points of the dam are now matching up almost perfectly. And what we're talking about here is Mead and Powell. The numbers and the collapses are hitting within weeks of each other. The immediate fall, the lake hitting 1049 tonight, that's Mead, perfectly tracks the Bureau's warning that the reservoir would bleed out roughly 6 to 8 feet this month alone due to the choked upstream supply. There's a lot of people telling the Bureau this was going to happen before they declared it. I guess, you know, it's just how it works. But the fall 2026 target, guys, we're just getting into June, so we don't have a long way to fall. Because the feds cut water releases out of Powell by 20% to save the upstream grid, Lake Mead's drop has accelerated into a straight line. The updated models now project the reservoir will match the 1035-foot hydropower cliff by this coming autumn. Also, guys, so this autumn, late summer, early autumn, both are at the collapse point. The entire Southwest water supply for downstream agriculture will be choked back to a minimum, and any hydroelectricity from those two sections will be gone. It says the buffer space is officially gone. The timeline predicted by the federal water managers is no longer a distant warning for 27 or 28. The physical collapse of the lake is matching the worst case curve month for month. We didn't get the spring runoff. It doesn't look like you're going to have much next year. But once it gets this low and you start looking at lower snow rates continuously, that's not a good sign. You're going to have to adapt there. It's going to be a big adaptation. If you stay there, you're going to have to adapt. Things are going to change, and they're changing quickly. Again, Mead and Powell going down this fall. Now, let's, again, 20 miles up, looking at current satellite data. This is the effects of El Nino. Guys, this is what's happening. Last year it was completely different. I showed you in an earlier video. This is pushing very warm Pacific water and currents all over this area. It's affecting all the trade winds and everything, trapping the heat. Check that out. And let's look at last year. I'll just show you the difference real quick. And it's completely different. A year to date, going back. You see how everything's circulating, get warm water being pushed in with cooler water, keeping everything to a minimum. And now nothing's going to the west like you're seeing here, or here, or here. Everything is moving to the east, forcing the high pressure into the southwest. And while we're here, And we'll go back into the current time, but while we're here, I want to show you one other thing that I've showed you before, but we're going to look at today's data. And this was very strong. This is not the jet stream. The jet stream is below it, but this is the top, very high. This is 20 miles. And you saw the pattern was pulling everything back to the west. Now, when this collapses, that changes everything. It kind of sets where it's at. And the natural movement from the Pacific Ocean into the continental U.S. and Mexico is to the moving left or right or to the east. So as this slows down, it allows more heat to be pushed into our area. Now look at what has happened today. Now it's completely collapsed. Look at that. Everything, what is high is going the opposite direction, but it's kind of just collapsed that entire upper level movement. You see what I'm saying? And this is very dry air right here. Well, let's actually, while we're here, look at the total amount of water that they're showing as of today via the satellite over that area. Guys, I can see a big difference in just the last 4 or 5 days, mainly on the east side. Look how dry it's becoming here. They've been squeezing the moisture out here in this section, Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, and southeast for the last 2 weeks, it seems like. That's going to run out, so enjoy it. But the Southwest has been under this system for a while now, and because that El Nino is pushing drier air, trapping the high pressure zone, there's not going to be much summer rain. The monsoons will almost be non-effective for 2 reasons. It'll be light, maybe some hard ones, but when the soil is this dry, that evaporates into the soil, soaked up before it hits the rivers. But it's going to be very limited. Mother Nature can hit from every direction at one time, and we're seeing it. Let me back up. And so we're going to have the problems with hurricane season starts tomorrow also. We're going to have problems with those storms making it inland. And you think that's a good deal. I mean, we don't want to see towns destroyed, but it is the cooling mechanism for the entire planet. So Mother Nature is hitting everybody from every side. Look at Africa, very dry as usual. But places like India, guys, have been in a heat wave in the triple digits for a few days. But the thing that's shocking is the data. It doesn't really shock me, but in a way it does, is what we're looking at for summer heat. Not just the aridification in the Southwest, but the entire continent, guys. Now, let's look at the current sea surface temperatures. This is current data. You can see the effects of El Nino at the lower edges. See this? But look at the purple area where the heat is being trapped, guys. And the continuing collapse and the pressure pushing down from the loss of those upper level high winds is going to push this dome across the Southwest and much of the U.S. And we're before summer's over, and we're just getting started with it. Look at the temperature of the Gulf of America. Look out at the Atlantic, guys, the Caribbean. But right here is the direct effect of this El Nino stream pushing everything north as far as warmer water. And that's where we're at. It's not good news. It sounds harsh, but I'm looking at data. I don't know any other way to do it in a situation like this. In my decades of watching things, way before YouTube, the hurricanes have been around and things like that, but I've never seen what I'm seeing now. The collapse coming from every direction. And isn't it funny that the data centers are one of the ways that all of this is happening? They're creating loss of water, loss of power, and heat. And they're destroying the landscape. But I saw an interview before I stopped this video, and it was Kevin O'Leary from whatever that show is. But he's a big real estate investor and big in Utah. I think he's from Utah, and they're talking about the data center he wants to put up there and all. But he says, we have to have it for our military. That's what they're all falling back on. They're saying we have to beat China. That's the number 2 thing they say for the military, and we have to beat China, because whoever controls the AI controls the launch patterns, the missiles, the drones, the attack coordinates, the watching everything that happens to your enemy at the speed of light. And that's their excuse. But how much do you need? I mean, Virginia's overrun. The Southwest is overrun. They're getting ready to build them in the South to completely deplete the water we have left in order to stop China, is what they're saying. What I see when I look at people with that speech is very dark eyes, and I saw it in that interview. Kevin turned from a semi-nice, responsive guest on a news station to a dark-eyed, demon-looking expression when the reporter actually asked the hard questions. What's it actually for? How is it going to affect people? How many jobs? And they're talking about, guys, 12,000 jobs maybe, or way higher than that to build it. But after that, a major data center can run on less than 100 people. So the job factor's thrown out the window. But they were showing in some of this interview the different data centers, again, Virginia, and they're sprawling. They're built in subdivisions almost. And the giant transmission towers are running right next to these brand new, I guess they are homes and duplexes, things like that. And the people are begging the local governments to do something about it. And you can tell the government response, even down to the mayor's guys, is all you can see is green dollar signs in their eyes as they spew the same rhetoric. It will help our county. It will bring in tax revenue. It will create jobs. And their eyes have the green dollar signs in them. Greed has taken over. Evil has taken over the controls. On the human side, Mother Nature's got the control on the other side. Unfortunately, they're going in the same direction. But we again, I've said this too, guys. We never thought we would see these types of changes come this quick. But other generations or other civilizations have seen it too. We don't know the timing of how all of this will happen. We do know that tomorrow 40% of the power from Mead will be shut down. And before cooler weather shuts down, we could see much more drop down at that 1035 level at Mead and Powell as they both drop together. We do know those data points. And so someone else will have to come up with a new formula, how you operate at that point with those numbers. There's not an infinite river supply anymore or an aquifer supply. How does that work? It doesn't work at all. Maybe that's the point that's being made. But the reason I've titled this Atlas Shrugged is because if you think about it, if you've ever read the book or the movie, or saw the movie, the technical atlas of the planet has shrugged. You've got old infrastructure in place. You've got decreasing resources. It has shrugged this technical environment totally, and it's about to completely throw it backwards off its shoulders. But guys, thank you for dropping by. There's a lot going on. Again, we're about to start tropical season. It's going to be very interesting to see how the El Nino, as it pushes from left to right on this image, from west to east, how that will affect the storms. They're going to be powerful, because if we turn this, you can see the heat band here at the convergence zone already. You can already see things trying to wind up because of the heat. Check it out. Now, if one of these that are going to have the engine and plenty of gas can slip through one of the low pressure zones and get into the Gulf, it wouldn't take but one, or the Caribbean, or along the East Coast, under a low pressure system where it doesn't open up and they turn right back into the Atlantic, then we could see one powerful storm hit the summer. And I remember Katrina, it knocked out 2 weeks of power and electricity during the heat of the summer. That year we started doing a little more prepping. But this is what's setting up. You're seeing the heat from Africa pile up into the Gulf of America, but this right here is the danger signal. We're watching it, guys. You watch it, and Atlas is shrugging as we speak.